Okay, so for gluconeogenesis, what we have is what gluconeogenesis is making sugar from essentially new sources. So the most important things is why do we need gluconeogenesis? You have alcohol-induced hypoglycemia, fasting hypoglycemia, and then diabetes mellitus. So in alcohol-induced hypoglycemia, you aren't eating any foods. All you have is a lot of carbs. So therefore, if you're not taking in any sugar, you're going to need something that makes blood sugar so that your systems don't shut down. So this is pretty much your drinking all this alcohol without eating causes the body to be low in sugar, so it induces gluconeogenesis because you're hypoglycemic. Same thing when you're fasting. Pretty much anytime when you're not eating, you're going to have low blood sugar, which is going to lead to gluconeogenesis. And then you have the opposite situation where you have diabetes mellitus, which is you have too much gluconeogenesis, which leads to high blood sugar. So these two situations are your low blood sugar, more gluconeogenesis. This one is essentially you have really high blood sugar, but diabetes doesn't allow gluconeogenesis to stop. So for some practice questions, we have how does alcohol impact blood sugar? Just know that alcohol lowers the blood glucose, which is hypoglycemic, and it induces gluconeogenesis, or your body has to make it on its own. Fasting, pretty much the same principle, lower blood glucose, and it prevents gluconeogenesis. How does diabetes impact blood sugar? You have too much gluconeogenesis, which leads to hyperglycemia. And then for this one, for fasting, just remember that if you're not eating anything, then there's nothing to make sugars from. So this is why it causes that low blood glucose. Okay, so introduction. The biggest thing to remember is that for glycolysis, it happens everywhere. Or in all your cells. Gluconeogenesis only in the liver and kidney. All right, so these are all the steps of everything. It's pretty much just the reverse of glycolysis, but you have 3 what we call bypass steps, or you can essentially skip all of this if you desperately need sugar. What they are is going from pyruvate to oxaloacetate to PEP using these enzymes. Fructose 1,6 biphosphonate, fructose 6-phosphate using this enzyme, and then just the final step of converting glucose 6-phosphate into glucose. So what you're looking for here is what are the 3 bypass steps and what are all the enzymes. The easiest way to remember it is that whatever you have as a substrate is going to go before the enzyme name. So pyruvate is going to be processed using pyruvate carboxylase. Fructose 1,6 biphosphate is going to be processed using fructose 1,6 biphosphatase. Glucose 6-phosphate is going to be processed using glucose 6-phosphatase. Just pretty much whatever your starting product is, just add that enzyme suffix on it. All right, energy requirements, just some memorization. 4 ATP, 2 GTP, 2 NADH. It'd be a simple question on whether you're getting the correct energy carriers and the correct numbers of them. All right, so for regulation, this one's pretty straightforward. All you have to know is the 2 things that activate gluconeogenesis. You have acetyl-CoA and glucagon. And the 2 things that inhibit gluconeogenesis is fructose 2,6 biphosphatate and insulin. And as for comparisons, the biggest thing is gluconeogenesis is building up sugar. So you're making sugar because you're low in the blood. So that's going to be anabolic. And you know that anabolic is going to consume ATP. And the biggest thing here is that, again, we're building sugars, and it only happens in the liver and kidney. Glycolysis will be pretty much the opposite of all. You're reversing it. You're going to be breaking down sugar, which is catabolic, which makes ATP, and the only thing that's not kind of a direct reverse is that glycolysis happens in all cells. So for the self-check questions, why is gluconeogenesis important for red blood cells and your brain? It makes glucose when you're fasting. So if it was a process where if you only had blood sugar whenever you were eating, that means you wouldn't give enough sugar for your brain. This gluconeogenesis ensures that your body has enough fuel even when you're not constantly eating. One major difference between glycolysis and gluconeogenesis, there were the 4 differences up here. So pretty much gluconeogenesis is building up sugar. Glycolysis is breaking it down. All right, 3 enzymes that are bypassed. There's going to be that list up here again. So the 3 enzymes you're looking for is a carboxylate, biphosphatase, and phosphatase. And the last one is which enzyme in gluconeogenesis is indirectly targeted through AMP activation by metformin? It's fructose 1,6 biphosphatase, or that's that second bypass step.